At this point, we are very familiar with Active Directory Services, or ADDS. We have looked at ways to secure the information that is stored in ADDS, but now we have to be very good IT pros, and we have to be concerned about backups and restores. So in this lesson, we're going to look at maintaining Active Directory. Specifically in this sub-lesson, we're going to look at how to enable the Active Directory recycle bin. Yeah, there's actually a recycle bin built into Active Directory, but it's not enabled by default. And then we're going to talk about performing backups and restores of Active Directory in Server 2016. The Active Directory recycle bin. A lot of people have not even heard of this because it's not enabled by default, but we can enable it using Active Directory Administration Center or using a PowerShell command called enable-ado optional feature. Once you've enabled this, there's no turning back. So it's a one-step task. You turn it on and it's on forever. It also creates another container inside of ADDS called deleted objects. If I should choose to delete an object, it's going to hang out in this deleted objects container for 180 days by default. However, you can change the recoverability time using the set-ado object, and you have to supply two parameters, the tombstone lifetime and the msds-deleted object lifetime. By executing this PowerShell command with those parameters, you can configure how long the objects are recoverable. And if you have to restore an item from the recycle bin, we can use either the GUI or PowerShell. Using the GUI, we'll go through the AD Administrative Center and we'll locate our object in that container. We'll right-click and then we'll click a restore, and that's going to move it right back to the exact location it was before. Or we can say restore to, because maybe I want to move an object to a different container or a different organizational unit. We can do so using restore to. You also have the option of using PowerShell, and we have two options here, the restore-AD object or restore-AD tree, which allows you to restore an entire OU. Let's go ahead and step out to our domain controller and look at how we enable the Active Directory recycle bin using the Active Directory Administrative Center. So as you can see, we're in Server Manager. We're going to go to Tools here and to our Administrative Center. And inside of here, we're going to choose our local computer, AZMTP. And over on the right-hand side, we have Tasks. And right in there is the Enable Recycle Bin option. We click on that. It says, dude, just make sure you know what you're doing because this cannot be disabled. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK. So it's now going to enable the recycle bin for the forest. It's going to replicate the recycle bin to the other domain controllers. We only have one other one, so it shouldn't take too long. So I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to let this complete the replication process, and then I'll come back and show you how to verify that it did, in fact, enable the recycle bin. And it didn't take too long, so we're going to go right in the center here with your AZMTP. We're going to scroll down, and we now have another container here called deleted objects. And you'll see there's nothing in there because we just turned this on. Let's do this. Let's test it. Let's go to Tools, Users and Computers. We're going to go to our AZMTP users, and we're going to pick on Vicky. We're going to right-click, and we're going to delete her account. Are you sure you want to do this? We'll go ahead and say yes. I'll minimize this now, and I'll go back to our recycle bin here. Go back to AZMTP. Go to our deleted objects. Let me refresh here. And you'll see Vicky's in there. Now I can right-click on this. Remember, I can use a restore or restore to. I'll restore Vicky. I'll again minimize this, go back to our ADUC, do a refresh in here, and she's back. So that's how we enable the recycle bin for Active Directory services, delete an item, and then restore the object from the deleted objects container. So that's how we delete individual items, but we need to be making sure we're backing up the entire Active Directory structures because we want to protect against data loss or any corruption. And we can back up ADDS using a Windows Server backup feature, and we can install that through the Server Manager, and then we can use the GUI or the command line utility called wbadmin.exe. After we've installed the backup feature, we can then go in and perform three types of backups. Bare metal recovery, which allows you to recover to time of failure. System state, which includes all of the configuration information, the roles, the features, sysvol, as well as the Active Directory Services database, or we can use this for specific volumes and specify what folders or even down to the file level that we want to back up. Again, we can't use this unless we've installed it. Let's go ahead and do that together. So we are back in Server Manager. We're going to click on Add Roles and Features. We're going to take the default role-based or feature-based installation from the one server pool that we have. Click Next. Nothing in here as far as server roles. It's actually a feature, so we're going to click right by this. Then we're going to scroll down, and down here we have the Windows Server Backup option. So we're going to go ahead and select that and then click Next. And if you know it requires a restart, you can ask it to restart it automatically for you. I'm going to go ahead and perform the installation, and then I'm going to pause the video, and then we'll come back and see where and how we use this Windows Server Backup tool. You'll see that it completed successfully, so I'm going to go ahead and close this. We're just going to go down to our Windows button down here, and we're going to look for Windows Accessories. And then we're going to scroll down, and you're going to see now we have Windows Server Backup, so we're going to click on that. And you'll see it opens up the GUI of the Windows Server Backup feature that we just installed. Before we kick off a backup, I want to talk a little bit about some of the considerations for that backup. We can use the Windows Server Backup feature that we just installed, which is what we're about to do. We can choose to run the Backup Once wizard, which allows me to perform an immediate backup. We can specify exactly what to be backed up and where that information is going to be backed up to, including a UNC, a Universal Naming Convention, of a backup location. And then we can specify whether the permissions on that backup folder are inherited or not inherited. And if we want to automate this, because this is all GUIized up to this point, we can use the command line utility called wbadmin.exe, and that will allow me to not only automate my backups, but also my restore operations. And most often you want to perform these automated backups overnight, so wbadmin.exe is going to be your friend to make sure that happens. Let's go back out to our domain controller and perform a Windows backup. And this is our Windows Server Backup tool. Notice it has local backup options already set, and in the middle provides messages and status options. On the right hand side we have actions. We have backup schedule if we want to create a schedule for a backup to occur every night. We have backup once, which is what we're going to do. This is where we'll come in and perform a recovery, and then we can configure performance settings as well. Let's look at that wizard. I'm going to go ahead and click on backup once. And this is dimmed out because we don't have any scheduled backups. Otherwise, it's going to kick off a scheduled backup, but we don't have any. So we're going to use the option that we do have, and that's different options. We'll click next on that. Do I want to back up the entire server? Well, that's 11.69 gigs, so that's not happening. And this is where we can complete a custom backup configuration. So we're going to go ahead and choose that. Then we'll click next. We'll then go into add items. Here's where we have that bare metal recovery I was telling you about, the system state. And here's my local disk, if I want to back up the entire local disk, or I can expand on this. Let me clear that so it clears all these checkboxes. This is going to be the smallest backup probably ever. We're going to back up one file called newusers.csv that we used earlier on in this course. I'll go ahead and click OK on that. Then we're going to go ahead and click next because we have chosen our item, whether it be a file or a folder. And it's checking to see what I have for local drives to back up to. I'm going to back it up to a remote share that I've already created. It's on this machine, but I'm going to back it up to a share with a UNC name. And it's going to be whack azmtp 1/backups. And then ask about the access control. Do not inherit or inherit, which is the default. We'll leave it that way. We'll go ahead and hit next. It's telling me it's going to back up this one file called newusers.csv. And we'll click on backup to kick off this one-time backup of that file. And you'll see my 1K backup completed successfully. So we'll close this out, and you'll see now in the messages we have information about a backup that was performed, and down here we have information about successful backups as well. So that's how we would perform a backup using the Windows Backup utility. So we've completed a backup now. Now we need to look at the flip side of that. What if we have to restore content? Well, we have to determine the type of restore necessary. When we're in Active Directory, we have two different types, and the behavior is going to be completely different, and you need to be extremely comfortable with which type you're going to perform. The first is non-authoritative restore, and what this is going to do is going to restore the data, and then it's going to replicate the data that was restored. You don't want to use this if you're trying to delete an item. What does that mean? Let's say I deleted an item accidentally, and I don't have it in my recycle bin because I don't have that activated. And I want to try to get that data back. Well, if I bring it back using a non-authoritative restore, it's going to replicate my change, including the delete that I performed. That's not going to work for me. The authoritative restore is what you're going to want to use if you're trying to recover data. The restored data is not overwritten. So if I bring back an item that was deleted, it's not going to clobber that when it performs replication. We can also perform this type of restore using the Active Directory recycle bin. The big question is, does sysvol need to be restored? Remember, sysvol is a very important folder. It contains scripts and group policy related files that resides in all of your domain controllers. So we have to determine whether or not we want to back that up, and we have to, more importantly, determine whether or not we want to restore that. Did a GPO get corrupted and I'm trying to restore that? Then go ahead and restore sysvol. But if you're not worried about what's going on with sysvol, then you can choose not to restore sysvol. Let's take a look at these non-authoritative versus authoritative restore. A non-authoritative restore contains 4 steps. You start your domain controller in what's called DSRM, Directory Services Recovery Mode. You'll open the Windows Server Backup Console as we just did. You'll use the Restore Wizard. We're going to take a peek at that in a moment. You'll use the Restore Wizard to restore the system state data from a backup that you've already completed. Then you're going to restart the domain controller, and then the replication to the restored domain controller is going to take place, and the non-authoritative restore has completed. Let's compare that to an authoritative restore. We're going to perform the same steps without doing the restart, which was our final step. We're instead going to open up an elevated command prompt, and we're going to run the ntdsutil.exe command. In there, we're going to type in the words authoritative restore. And then we're going to choose what object we want to restore. Restore object, common name equal Brian, OU we'll say it was in a sales, and it was part of the Pearson.com domain. Then we'll restart our domain controller. If you want to restore an entire OU, you're going to use these commands instead. Instead of restore object, you're going to do restore subtree, OU equals sales, comma DC equal Pearson, comma DC equal com. Notice there's no spaces in there, and then you'll restart the DC, and that'll restore the entire OU. And as I've already mentioned, and we've already experienced together, we can use the AD recycle bin to go out and pick and choose objects that we want to recover instead of using the authoritative restore. Let's jump out and restore our humongous file that we had just backed up moments ago. We are back in our Windows Server Backup utility. We're going to go to the actions on the right-hand side, and we have the recover option. And you're going to be asked, where is this backup stored? Is it on this server, or is it backup stored at another location? Now, I did type in a UNC name, but it was right back to this server. So I'll be able to locate it using this server, AZMTP1. I'll click Next. It's asking me what date the backup was performed. And the location, there's the location that we sent it to. I'll go ahead and click Next because it's the same day. And now it's asking me what I want to recover. Remember I said I had to choose the recovery type. Files and folders, Hyper-V, volumes, applications, and system state. Depending on what I backed up is going to depend on what's available on this page here. We'll go ahead and click Next again. We'll expand on AZMTP. We'll click on local disk. And here it's already drilled in and found the item to recover. So I'll go ahead and click on that, and then I'll click Next. It's asking me if I want to restore it to the original location, or, this is sweet, I can restore it to another location. And if it goes into a location where it finds a copy that already exists, which would be the scenario here, do I want to create a copy so that you have both versions? So I don't necessarily have to clobber it. Do you want to overwrite the existing version, or do not recover the item if it already exists in the recovery destination? So if I'm restoring to a folder that contains 20 files and I'm restoring 30 files, well, 20 of them already exist. So if I choose this third option, it's not going to overwrite those. And then we have our ACL permissions if we want to restore those. It's going to show you what it's going to restore in our confirmation screen, and then we'll click Recover. And again, probably the fastest recovery that's ever been done. We'll go ahead and close, and you'll see now on their messages in the center, we have a backup and we have a file recovery. So this is what you need to understand, whether it be the Active Directory recycle bin and how to enable that and how to recover from that, and how to perform a backup of your system state or specific files or folders, and how to restore those backups, all using the Windows Server Backup utility, which you first have to install as a feature through Server Manager.